Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 177 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Alright, I'm not real big on the whole teaser and we'll show you on the next video. I don't like doing that because I just think I don't want to play games with y'all. This is very serious to me. But I just didn't think I had time to put this on the last video. The old way of casting a full round model like this is that you make your mold, and whether it's a waste mold or a reusable mold or whatever, and reassemble it, get everything prepped, charge it with your vestment, with your plaster, or your hydrocal or denostone, whatever you want to use, and then you tumble it. And the old way literally was to go on the ground and tumble it and do it, doing it in the studio, the ground's kind of hard, it's just not a good idea, and it's dusty, it's nasty. If you go out on the lawn and roll it around, it's usually a little bit more comfortable. It tends to be safer. Some of the old molds you'll see will actually be relatively rounded off, and that's because they literally would roll them or tumble them. Now you can put them on a sheet or two of plywood and roll them back and forth. Some people have the fancy rotational casting equipment, that's got like a cage inside a cage inside a cage, so it can turn in multiple axes at the same time. That's complicated stuff, and it isn't free, and it isn't cheap. And you can do it with like a concrete mixture, cement mixture, to modify one thing. But then you gotta make it fixed, and you gotta turn down the speed, and so what I've got, this is 24 inches in diameter. Remember I said I was trying to keep that 24 inches, okay? And it's kind of cool because it keeps everything from getting all drum, little lid that you can put on it, so you store it, okay? This is your storage, and you can stack stuff on and do whatever you want. Several years ago, my hand truck, this is a good hand truck. This is made to where it will handle, you probably don't know much about hand trucks. When you buy a hand truck, it's important to look at it and see whether it's flat across here or if it's dished. This will carry something around like a 55-gallon drum, okay? I had a hand truck that I got it cheap because I lent my good one to the neighbors that were deadbeats and moving, and they wanted to borrow my hand truck. And they took my hand truck and they never came back, and that was the best 50 bucks I'd ever spent related to a neighbor because they got rid of it. This is an older one that I got with my big setting truck because the tires were flat and the bottom was broken off, but it's curved. For my other one, it wasn't curved. So what I did is I took a piece of plywood and I notched it and put a curve in so I could move my plaster barrel around the studio easier, because otherwise when I picked it up, it would roll. Okay, so I've done the same thing. I don't know if that's going to be out of frame a little bit. I've done the same thing to a certain extent with this. So I made, let's see, this is for the bottom. These are the sides. These are the sides. I've got them drilled and marked. I've got one marked as left and one marked as right, so I know which ones they are. And I made it with those same style of standards that has two wheels on it. And what you're going to find, I don't really have a pattern for this. you should be able to look at this, make your cutout a little bit bigger than the barrel. And then I've got two of these. I've got another one right here. I put the same line from, basically it's a 45 from the corner, just because that was convenient. I laid all four of these boards together so they matched, and they just put the 45 from the corner. If you're into collecting pieces and parts and scrap stuff like I do, you'll end up with a bunch of casters over the years. Oh, I use those and I'll put wheels on all my equipment in my shop and I can move it around and it'll be great. Well, what happens is, the reason that those casters a lot of times are available used is because there was a set of 4 of them and somebody broke one of the wheels, and then they found out they couldn't match that one wheel because there's this little difference in it, and so they couldn't just put another wheel on there and have it work without rocking around. And so they take off the other 3 wheels. Or they only had a pair of wheels to start with, and they thought, well, I'll find another pair to match those, just wait and see. And you'll find every pair on the face of the earth that don't match those wheels, you get them for nothing. So you end up with all these wheels, but a lot of times you'll have a pair of wheels that match. And so that's what I did here. That's not critical though. You got to understand, because this line is the same on all of these 2 sets of I don't even know what you call them, rollers. You just have to make sure that the wheel stands above, at this center line, these are 1 inch tall. And so I've got these wheels that are like, I don't know, they're like 4 or 5 inches, and these other ones that are like 1 inch or 1.5 inches shorter. And so all you have to do is make sure there's 1 inch standing up here, that point of contact is 1 inch above this radius, so that both of them match. And then drill this to fit your axle. Just lay your wheel on there and set it and mark a hole and put them together and drill them. And you can bolt, you can have mismatched wheels. I could have 4 wheels that don't match, 4 different size wheels. And as long as the same amount stands up right here, they're all going to function just the same for this very crude piece of equipment, okay? And so I made them to fit this piece of equipment, this hand drive. Here's the other one. They just turn just fine. They fit right where I need them to fit. Maybe this one has to be up here. I don't really remember. Yeah. Okay, so those fit. And then for the bottom, that gooey seal. For the bottom, I laid this on the barrel, or laid it on the lid, drew a line, just to have my curve. Okay? I gotta clean that. The old nasty seal in the barrel's all melted. And then I just mounted these both match, okay? These are the same height. And these will go on the bottom to support, they go like this, to support the barrel as it's turning. So this is resting on the bottom and the barrel's on the side. So what I'm gonna do, I've got the screws in the holes. I've got these marked as to where they belong. This screws through here. I put a piece of 2x4, screwed it, and then I screwed into this up from the bottom. I'm going to take my, handy dandy drill screwdriver. I'm going to take these apart and I'm going to screw them together. And I'll be back in just a second and show you what we're going to do. Okay? Real simple. All right, it's all bolted together. Take a look. This is what you end up with. Got the bolt holes, screw holes marked. There's 3 on the bottom on each corner. And everything's marked right and left, so you can just run the holes out. All right, that's pretty basically cost some plywood. So let me hang the camera back up and I'll show you how it works. All right, this is pretty basic. Then you take the barrel with the store in it and you just set it on here all the way down against those wheels on the end. Now it's really easy. Charge your model, put it in here, and turn it. You can set it on something for a riser. You can set it on this bench. You can stand it way up. You can lay it down even like flat on the ground and have it at whatever attitude you need it to be. And you can turn it as fast or slow. You know, we thought about it, put a motor on it and like a serpentine belt and let it run. It isn't that complicated, man. The only thing that's kind of a bugger, you sort of have to figure out a way to support your model in there. And I've wanted to find, when we closed the farm down, I'm up in Vermont, I didn't get some tractor inner tubes. I was going to get some big inner tubes because you can put them in there, you get this where you want them, and then just put enough air in them to tension them. And I never did. And now the farm's gone, the tires are gone, and all that. But you can put something in this. You can make a standoff if you want. But it's very easy to, even put it just on a bench or something. And not just have it sitting there, but actually tie it so it can't go anywhere. But then you can charge it, and it's easy to turn this without a big disaster. And this isn't an expensive setup. This is very affordable to do. I don't think, I forget how much plywood I use. I don't think it takes more than about half a sheet. But make it to whatever fits. The barrel's 24 inches long. These might be 32. I forget if they're 32 inches across. And then cut your radius out. And I did it with just hand tools. An electric saw. When I did it, and just a jigsaw because I don't think I had my bandsaw set up. And you just make it work. It's not complicated. So try to take the problems you've got and solve them. And you can get a barrel and I need to clean that glue out. That seal used to be around here to keep the air watertight, and it fell down in and melted, and I had it forever. But it's really nice to be able to take your whole setup and then take it apart and put it back in the barrel when you're done, so that it's stored out of the way, put the lid on, and then you can let it sit and store stuff on it, and as long as the barrel doesn't rust out, it's great. So that's how this works. But it is important, if you don't have wheels, the casters on the bottom of the barrel, for it to rest against those, it may walk or wander. The only real issue you've got is you've got to space your wheels so that they don't hit the rings on the barrel. And as long as they don't hit that, you're all set. But you can have it at any attitude very easily, and just do it. So I don't know, I hope that was worth the wait. Now I got to put this thing together and get it all ready and get it supported in there with some cardboard or whatever, and we'll go from there. All right, got the barrel underway. Now we've got to work on reassembling the mold, and it's a good time to take a look at it, see what looks right, what looks wrong, if there's any trash in it that we missed. And there's a few steps, okay? When you put this together, we're going to put it together, we're going to put the pins in it, okay? When we charge this with plaster, because we're going to turn it, we want to coat the inside. That plaster has to be really wet. It can't really have kicked, or it just barely start to cream. As soon as it starts to get a little bit of body to it, we're going to start charging this. And then we're going to rotate it so that it coats the whole inside and it sticks to it. What we don't want, and what we tried to do when I did my dam, when I put my flashing in, I tried to get a nice tight joint, okay? Doesn't always mean that happens. And so if you put this in here, you get this all together, you put the plaster in, and there's a gap, that plaster will run out of there just like a hole in a bucket. And all your plaster will go right in the barrel, makes a huge mess. I hadn't, it's easier, sometimes you just get another barrel for $5 and just clean the barrel. And as cheap as I am, that's just the truth. So something that you can do is take your Vaseline and like a putty knife, and you can go around your seam and you can wipe it like this, so it leaves a little hump of Vaseline on the seam side, on the flange side of that. We don't want to interfere with the positive, but that can help bridge just a small gap that might be there, just enough to cloth the plaster so that it doesn't run right through. But you don't want to have any amount there that squeezes into the cavity to interfere with the positive of the cast. I'm gonna release this just with some naphtha. You don't necessarily have to. You saw how the plaster simply didn't grab this at all, but I want to make sure that I don't have a loss, because I'm telling you, you're going to do this, you're going to find out that the only time it goes wrong is at an important spot. You'll lose the end of her nose, you lose her lips, you lose your fingertips, whatever. You're never going to lose anything, you're not going to have a hole pop off, in the middle of her forearm. It's going to be right in the middle of her cheek. Okay, so I'm just going to use my indoor plumbing here. This is just water to wet my naphtha that's been here drying out since the last time we ran any naphtha. I'm just going to go over this. I don't want it to puddle up. Just want it to be on here. And be something to help let it come off even more perfectly. But in general, you're not really going to have to release them. Some of this is habit. Angela always said to release stuff. You always use naphtha. So this is me spending some time with Angela today. She's been dead for 4 or 5 years now. And it's something to think about. But I'm going to do all these molds, just a quick brush to release it. Make sure that it doesn't puddle up anywhere, because I don't want anything to add up. And once I do all that to all these, we're going to start setting these together. And it's the same thing. You put it together and put a couple of these pins in. And little pieces of bolt all thread to line it up, and then progressively tighten them up. Make sure everything's aligned. Watch your seams as well as you can. Once we get, up around the sides of her head, that's the hard part. The thing with these is that these will have nuts on them that we can tighten up. But we can only tighten them to a certain point or they'll break. They'll break the plaster. It's real easy to break this hydrocal because of the pressure that these can exert. So what you end up doing is you either use like some cord, rope, mule tape, or you can take some old inner tubes and make big old rubber bands. And these apply a really nice even pressure. These are for motorcycle tires just because it's what I had. Just make sure when you cut them that you try to cut the edges pretty smooth. And if you can cut them, different portions of an inner tube may be thicker or thinner. And if you make your rubber band to where you cut it so that it's mostly the same thickness, you'll end up with it won't break as easily. These are pretty old. I keep them out of the weather, I keep them inside, and they last a long time. I can't crank them on super tight, but these are a little faster than using rope. But I'll use probably these as some mule tape. We'll see how it looks. The mule tape's nice because you can tie it on and use it as handles. But I'm going to keep releasing all of these. We'll start assembling it, and I'll be back in a little bit. Okay. Once you're done with the release, before you start putting anything on, kind of get an idea on which piece goes where. I know this one goes here, this one goes on the other side. I'm going to try to just work towards the camera a little bit. But I've already put some Vaseline just around the edge. Not a lot. You don't need a whole bunch. Just don't go nuts on this stuff. And what's going to happen when you're releasing this is all of a sudden the model's not going to seem anywhere as near as big because you're used to these flanges sticking way up. And it makes it seem like it's really big, but it's not. Okay? And just get a couple on there. If you've got room for a washer, put one on. And if you don't have to. It's not. It'll help spread the load, help make it less likely to fracture. But you may not have enough room depending on how your flange is made. Okay, so if you can't, don't lose any sleep over it. And if you chase these threads like I did when I took it apart, you'll be glad you did, because these things will get dirty and they'll rust, and it'll be really hard to get them together. Just get a couple of them on here and start it, and then just sort of work your way around. You don't need to fight them. But having everything together, theoretically you only need exactly enough, but you'll end up dropping one here, dropping one there. And then, so it's nice if you got a few extra nuts and bolts. Usually the bolts you won't drop, but you'll drop a nut when you're covered with Vaseline or salt. And then you'll wish you had a couple more in your box. Like I said, these don't have to have a lot of torque on them. They just need to be enough and all this may do is stick this together. This is one of the nice things about having the paper on it. careful where you put it or you'll end up wearing all of it, okay? You just work them all together so that everything is lined up. Because if you put one side together, and then put the other side together, like completely, it usually doesn't go that well, because it takes some fiddling to get this right. And then once things are supported, they go a lot better. You see the gap, the joint looks pretty good. You can always go back in with your finger and smooth it with either a little bit of plaster or a little bit of vaseline to fill it up. All right? Yeah, see, by getting those top ones done, this one lined right up. So we'll just keep nutting and bolting here. We'll get all of this done first, and then we'll put the bottom portions on. And then we got to work on rigging the whole thing. Be careful about the balance on your table. If you got something like this, because I'm on the edge, I'm going to move everything over so that I'm working on the center of the table. Because otherwise the table will flip out from under me. And things get broken, and that's not good. Okay, just keep in touch with what you're doing. Pay attention. All right, I'm going to work on jiggling bolts. As you're working, you may need to clearance some of these holes a little bit more. So that the washers or the nut, whatever, will sit down. You shouldn't have to do a lot if you did it before, but sometimes there's a little bit that you missed. And so just take care of it. Clean your holes out really well. And you may have to, this Vaseline's your friend. Okay, if you use a store-bought bolts, great. Your ends are probably going to be okay, but you can still have some plaster in the threads, and so you're going to have to clean them out. And then you'll clean them out and you'll push them through. And when you push it through, you'll jam them all up with plaster again. So just check your ends before you go in and make sure you can get on there good. And if you got to address it, address it. And this is tedious. When you're done, you don't have to, these are finger tight, okay? They're not loose. I mean, these don't just flop around. But I didn't take a pair of pliers and crank on them. They'll pull together just a little bit, and then they'll stop. And you're smart to stop because it's really easy to break this material, just because the amount of PSI that you could put on with one of these bolts, the shear strength of a quarter 20 volt, the strength you've got in terms of the threads where they pull or compress is really impressive. When you pick up you know, you swap an engine, you pull an engine transmission, you know, 1,000 pounds just on those 4 bolts screwed into aluminum. So the aluminum is the weak point. It's not these bolts. So you'll and if you get into a point where you can't turn your wing nut, if you need to, just put 2 nuts on there. At the end of this, most of these nuts and bolts will go back into my inventory, especially all the wing nuts and everything, because you don't need to have 40 of them holding this thing together. You're probably never going to use it again. You put a few of them on there to hold it together, you can take probably 2/3 of them out, and you'll be all set. So just work slow, you'll get there. It's just tedious, drag, pain in the butt stuff, okay? Keep your ride, keep clean, all right? Just gonna keep working. All right, I'm gonna break this video off here. Just gonna say bye, and we'll just cut this one off, and we'll start the next video right up where in the middle of this. To try to keep it at 30 minutes, all right? My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.